All right, so today's screen recording video may look a little different. I'm in a little rectangle here instead of your normal circle because my old program that I was using stopped working for some reason. And so hopefully I can use it again or use this program. All right, so Assessment 31A, New Read Assessment 2 is going to be your first part of your lesson today. I want you to take this seriously because this is going to count as a quiz test grade in your last quarter report card. And so I want you to really take your time as I'm reading it out loud and going through each part. I really want you to pay attention and focus, okay? And so today's passage comes from Family Pictures. It's 2 pages out of Family Pictures. They're picking noble cactus and oranges. So please make sure you're reading along or following along as I read aloud to answer the questions. Okay, so the total amount of points that this quiz or test is 12 points. So I'll explain the last short answer piece as well. All right. Picking noble cactus. In the early spring, my grandfather would come and get us, and we'd all go out into the woods to pick noble cactus. Here, my grandfather and my mother are slicing off the fresh, tender pads of the nopal and putting them in boxes. My grandmother and my brother Arturo are pulling leaves from the mesquite tree to line the boxes. After we got home, my grandfather would cut off all the needles from each cactus pad. Then my grandmother would parboil the nopalitos in hot water. The next morning, she would cut them up and stir-fry them with chili powder and eggs for breakfast. Right. Oranges. We were always going to my grandparents' house, so whatever they were involved in, we would get involved in. In this picture, my grandmother is hanging up the laundry. We told her that the oranges needed picking, so she said, "Well, go ahead and pick some." Before she knew it, she had too many oranges to hold in her hands, so she made a basket out of her apron. That's my brother up in the tree, picking oranges. The rest of us are picking up the ones that he dropped on the ground. All right, so first question is, who narrates the 2 stories? So again, thinking about who is telling the story. A. Carmen Lomas Garza narrates both stories. B. Grandmother narrates both stories. C. Arturo narrates both stories. Or D. Grandfather narrates picking noble cactus and Carmen Lomas Garza narrates oranges. You should also know this answer from our previous lessons when we talked about family pictures, when we looked at about the author, as well as the back page about the book. Right. Number 2, how are the events of the story similar? A. In both picking noble cactus and oranges, the children are very hungry. B. In both picking noble cactus and oranges, Arturo climbs a tree. C. In both picking noble cactus and oranges, grandfather says the family will sell the food it gathers. D. In both picking noble cactus and oranges, the family works together to collect food. All right. Number 3, what is an important difference in the events in the 2 texts? A. In picking noble cactus, the family is very hungry, but in oranges, the family is not hungry. B. In picking noble cactus, the grandfather plans the activity, but in oranges, the children plan the activity. C. Picking noble cactus and oranges both show the family working together. Or D. In picking noble cactus, the family is working hard, but in oranges, the family is having a party. Okay. Number 4, what clues clarify the meaning of the word nopalitos? Okay, again, finding context clues of what helps you to understand what the word nopalitos means. Okay, so for questions like this, a strategy that we've talked about is going back to the passage and finding that word to see what words around it or what sentences around it help you understand what this word means. A. Nopalitos ends in OS, like tacos, so it is probably a food. B. The grandmother boils the nopalitos for breakfast, so nopalitos are probably eggs. C. The grandmother boils the nopalitos in hot water, so they might be dirty clothes that need to be washed. D. The family picked nopal cactus, and then the grandmother boils nopalitos, so nopalitos must be another word for the cactus that the family cooks. All right, so number 5 has 2 parts. Read the following sentence. Here, my grandfather and my mother are slicing off the fresh, tender pads of the nopal and putting them in boxes. So, part A. Which sentence correctly uses possessives to express the same idea? Okay, so here I want you, let's see if I can do this correctly. I want you to carefully look at, yes. Here. Oh, it disappeared. All right, so let's see. All right, well, I'm going to just use this cursor perhaps. Oh, whoa, cool. All right. Okay, so this is a little spotlight. I want you to look specifically at nopals, okay? So which of these answer choices uses the possessive form of nopal, right? The pads of the nopal cactus. So the pads belong to the nopal, which is why it's possessive, right? I want you to look carefully at A, B, C, and D and see which one is used correctly, okay? So look at A, nopals with apostrophe S, nopals with no apostrophe, nopal, no S, or nopals with apostrophe ES. All right, so which sentence uses possessives correctly to express the same idea? All right, that's pretty cool. Now it won't let me. Okay, back to normal. All right, part B. Which sentence correctly uses the past tense of the verb to be? Okay, so here I wrote down the verb capitalized, the words capitalized so that you can see it clearly. Here my grandfather and my mother be slicing off the fresh tender pads of the nopal and putting them in boxes. B. Here my grandfather and my mother was slicing the fresh tender pads of the nopal and putting them in boxes. Here my grandfather and my mother were slicing off the fresh tender pads of the nopal and putting them in boxes. Or D. Here my grandfather and my mother been slicing off the fresh tender pads of the nopal and putting them in boxes. So again, which sentence uses the correct past tense form of the word to be? Be, was, were, or been. Number 6. Which is an important point in both texts? A. Working together is an important way for families to be together. B. The narrator likes oranges better than nopalitos. C. Grandmother likes to cook. Or D. Preparing food at home is a lot of work. Okay. Again, emphasis on the word important. What's the important point that both texts make? All right. Number 7, here is our paragraph short response question. And as you can see, this question is five points. Oh. Will it let me? Yes. 5 points. There we go. All right. So respond to the following question with a short answer, 5 to 7 sentences, which is why this question is at least 5 points. Okay. Use complete sentences and provide relevant textual evidence to support your explanation. So again, the text says, or in the text it says, the text states, and referring back to the text up here, picking nopal cactus and oranges. Okay. So the question that you need to answer is, what is a shared central message in picking nopal cactus and oranges? Use text evidence to support your answer. I'm not going to tell you what central message is because this is a test and I want you you should know what central message means. We've been discussing it since September, but if you're not sure, yesterday's lesson we talked about central message and we started thinking about what the central message of the keeping quilt could be. So I want you to think about what you wrote yesterday and relate that to today, in that knowing what you had to do yesterday, you're going to have to do today here for these two passages. Okay? What do you think the central message is? Use text evidence to support your response. And you know the acronym, describe your knowledge to a T. That will help you. 5 sentences, TEEEE, topic statement, evidence, elaboration, evidence, elaboration. Good luck, take your time, and have fun. So for the first part of your classwork today, I want you to answer the focusing question, which is how do immigrants respond to challenges in new countries? So you see here in the second column, you need to write down the character you picked. You're going to have 3 characters you can pick from the text we've read so far in Module 3, and then answering the focusing question based on the character in the third column under your response. So the 3 characters you can pick are Masako, Patricia, or grandfather. All right, so here is your focusing question task, your writing piece, or your prompt for your writing piece for tomorrow. But first, we are going to be planning it together today using our handy dandy writing planner, ESCAPE, Escape. And so, as we always do if we were in school, we go over our writing task together, break it down so we know what we need to include, and make sure we answer all parts of the prompt. Okay? All right, so your task is to write a short narrative about when Patricia's mother first tells her about how the keeping quilt is important to their family and a reminder of their traditions. Okay, so we know that we need to write a narrative piece, right, which is telling a story, and the story needs to be about the moment when Patricia's mother first tells Patricia about the keeping quilt and how it's important to the family and a reminder of their traditions. So immediately you already know that the quilt is important, right? It's important to Patricia's family and it's a reminder of their traditions because it's used, right, in a lot of different occasions within the family, right? And it's being passed on from generation to generation. Okay. Now, we also know we need to use evidence from the text, The Keeping Quilt by Patricia Polacco. Now, here's what's different. So, normally when you add evidence from the text, we use sentence starters like, in the text it says, or the text states, blah, 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 blah. But for this particular narrative piece, it'd be silly if we wrote, Patricia said, Mom, what is the point of this quilt? In the text, it says, right? It'd be silly to have that as the response when Patricia's asking her mom something in a dialogue, right? So instead, you just need to make sure that you fact check yourself and that you're taking parts of the book and using it to drive your narrative, right? So you need to make sure that you include that Patricia's mom gives examples of how the quilt is used in their family, right? Real examples that you've read already in the Keeping Quilt, right? In the book, it talks about how the Keeping Quilt is used as a huppa, right? The canopy of when people in the family have gotten married, right? We know it's also been used as a tablecloth, right? So these are some examples that come directly from the text. So if you include that in your narrative, that means that you are including evidence from the text. Okay? All right, now let's look at our checklist for success. So we also need to establish the situation, including the time and place. So this just means that you need to make sure that you know what's happening in the story. You want to include where they're sitting, right? Or are they standing? Are they in the kitchen? Are they in the living room? Are they in the dining room? Are they in bed? So you can decide what you want the situation to be. Now, you also need to introduce the narrator and the character. So the narrator must stay the same. So the narrator is actually Patricia, right? Just like in our text. So I want you to include that. So you should have I, right, for Patricia. So, and the other character that you must include in your narrative writing is Patricia's mom, right? All right. Organize events in a natural order. So making sure that the dialogue has a flow, right, in order, as well as events that may be taking place. So if one character is moving to another room or one character is doing something, right, making sure you have it in an order that makes sense. Now, very, very important as well. Use details about immigration and finding a new home to create a realistic fictional narrative. So I want you to also use the knowledge that you've gained so far from those audio interviews, and kind of similarly to your writing piece that you worked on yesterday for the classwork, using all of the facts that you know about what real immigrants experience when moving, using that knowledge to kind of drive your narrative as well, and including those facts within the story, right? So you want to include something about maybe there was a reason why her family had to move from Russia to the United States, right? So including that, maybe the journey of coming to America, or when coming to Ellis Island, right? Any of these things you can include in your narrative writing piece. Okay. Providing a sense of closure, you need to make sure that you end the piece with the understanding of the last part of our prompt, which is that the quilt was a reminder of their family's traditions. Okay. And then using time words and phrases. So I will have this anchor chart available so that you can use it for your writing piece. And so making sure when you are describing events that are happening in order, including some time words in the beginning of your sentences will also help the flow and your reader to understand what's happening first, second, next, and last. And then super duper important, dialogue. So let's highlight this word, because this is something we've been practicing for quite some time now. Here. Boop, 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 boop. Right, when characters are speaking to one another. I don't know why my pen keeps disappearing, but yes. So this is also super duper important. You need to include dialogue throughout your narrative writing piece. And this is something that we've been really focusing on practicing, because dialogue really helps us understand how a character feels. And so you are able to portray how Patricia's mom is feeling and Patricia's feelings through the dialogue that you include in your narrative writing piece. Okay. And also a description, details to develop events and characters, just like I said, right? Like how we remember those evidence organizers we did in for Tea with Milk and Grandfather's Journey of ATF, a character's actions, thoughts, and feelings, right? And we know this through their dialogue, right? So that's what you are going to be doing, but you are going to be creating the dialogue. All right. Then the next couple 4 pieces on the checklist are kind of for editing purposes, making sure you use the correct punctuation, commas, quotation marks, capital letters to begin dialogue, ensure subject-verb agreement, and using possessives correctly, which is on your new read assessment as well. All right, so that is your task sheet for your writing piece. So some questions that you may want to think about as you're planning your writing include: what was Patricia thinking or feeling in that moment? What might Patricia and her mother say to one another in that moment? What might Patricia see? What might she hear? And what might she touch? All right, so here's the second part of your classwork today, which is filling out this chart: format, audience, purpose, and topic. And this tells me if you're paying attention in this video, as well as really understanding what your writing piece should look like. So again, your format of your writing piece is a narrative writing piece, so you should write narrative here. Your audience is your teacher and classmates. I'm hoping that I will be able to show you how to write comments to one another privately, peer editing. So I'm going to pair you up with someone so that you can look at someone else's writing piece. And we'll talk more about that either in tomorrow's video or next week's video. Okay. And then the purpose, which is the whole point of this writing piece, is to describe an experience, right? And the topic of what experience you are describing when Patricia's mom tells Patricia about the keeping quilt, right? That's the whole topic and purpose, is to describe that moment and also to include dialogue and make it interesting. Okay? And then the second page, please don't forget, this is the crux of the classwork today, which is filling out this writing planner of, orienting the situation, establish what is happening, right? And then what's the setting? Where are the characters and when does this take place? You can describe it as a morning, night, or the exact date if you'd like. The characters, I'm going to actually fill this out for you already because this is Patricia and Patricia's mom, right? You can include more characters if you'd like to add to that list. The action, what events are exactly happening? How do the characters respond? What is the problem, or what does a character want? This may be Patricia's mom, what she wants. And then the resolution to the problem. How does your moment or story end? Okay? All right, please let me know if you have any questions. And I will be available to answer your questions. So again, please do your best with this writing piece. This is the last writing piece before we get to our essential question, which is going to be your last your very last and final writing task for this module. And then we will be moving on to module 4 very, very soon. So please take your time, do your best, and have fun. All right.